So, you want to be a real estate investor, but where do you start? How do you know what information and sources to trust? That's where I come in. I'm Jonny Cattani, and this is the Investor Relations Real Estate Podcast. Hey guys, real quick, before we start, go to investwithcattani.com and download my free ebook, Is Commercial Real Estate Recession Proof? Now to today's show. What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Investor Relations Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Jonny Cattani. Really excited for today's episode. We're going to mix it up a little bit. Usually we're talking to fund managers or operators, but today we are joined by the lovely Lauren Brychell, who is the investor relations over at Spartan Investment Group. As part of the investor relations team, her role is to use her skills in marketing and project management to assist the team with investor-facing collateral, communications, capital raise projects, and investor education. So wears a lot of hats, and we're very excited to talk to her today. Thanks for coming on, Lauren.
Thanks so much for having me, and I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So we'll kind of go through the beginning here, and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts, kind of talk about your early career, some college stuff, and what led you to Spartan.
Awesome. Yeah. So early career, I went to Belmont Abbey College out in Charlotte, North Carolina area, studied marketing and entrepreneurship. That's kind of where my love for real estate started, is looking at all the different ways of being an entrepreneur, right? My parents always bought different houses all over the country, and, you know, some fix and flips, things like that. But I really just love the idea of making my own thing, doing my own thing. So of course, I did not become an entrepreneur right out of college. So I started off my career in the CBD oil industry, which was totally different than real estate, but got a lot of great marketing project management experience there, where we launched a pet CBD oil brand. We went public as the first CBD oil company to go public. So it was really fun to be a part of that. And then, that industry wasn't really for me. So I was looking for my next move. And I also wanted to move out west. So I found Spartan on LinkedIn, actually. And, I originally was hired for marketing position for them, doing all their property level marketing, setting up their corporate marketing infrastructure. We launched the Free Up Storage national brand. And then, our CIO said that I would be great at investor relations. And I was like, well, what's that? So, he's been training me up for the last couple of years. And I think I've been full-time investor relations at Spartan now for about a year and a half. So it's been awesome.
Nice. Yeah, I'm sure you're probably happy to be back in in-person conferences. Lauren and I connected in LA for the first time at the IREC, and then again at BEC. So were you introduced to this stuff then kind of right as COVID or in the middle of COVID? So you were probably doing most of the beginning all through Zoom and kind of through that whole process?
Yeah. So for a while there, we did a ton through Zoom, a lot of investor intro calls and things like that, just over the phone. But we love hosting in-person events, happy hours, educational series for our investors and potential investors. So it's been really nice to get back into that swing. So
yeah, you're probably getting a lot of putting a lot of faces to the names of people you've connected with through LinkedIn. Yes. I know that was a big thing at BEC, is so many people were like, I think I know you, you look familiar. And of course, you've talked to them in some form or fashion. So kind of talk about, you've been there, like we said, offline for about 3 years. So the beginning was more the marketing side. Kind of talk about that transition, what led to the investor relations, and then what that job kind of looks like now.
Sure. So, I have sort of an outgoing personality to begin with, which makes me good at sales and external facing things, which is where it kind of stemmed from. It really was, we started with the basics when Ryan started teaching me all the things I needed to know, what is a return? What makes a project good? What do we look for in the due diligence in the properties itself? And, what makes a great investment, kind of digging through the underwriting files and all of those little nuances that you don't really understand or know until you dive into it. So it was a lot of one-on-one training, a lot of external trainings, listening to podcasts, learning a lot of things from other people in the industry. And then I also went to Cornell and an online financial management series of courses through them to really get a deep understanding of the basics. So lots of moving parts went into it. I started off actually talking to the investors about the offerings probably just over a year ago now. And that's kind of my main focus right now, is just presenting the offerings to investors, talking them through the ins and outs of it, having them or helping them understand if they're new to real estate investing, kind of what all these little things mean. Also help a lot with the investor communications, the emails that go out on a monthly basis, planning the happy hours and events that we travel to all across the country. And yeah, we like to put our priority on meeting those investors face to face. So I'm always kind of traveling around and meeting as many people as I can. So
awesome. Well, it sounds like as long as you like to travel and talk to people, which sounds like you do, then that's really awesome. So as you know, you guys obviously very large firm, right? A lot of firms we talk to are still doing most of this stuff in-house, kind of, you know, the top people are also doing the investor relations. So kind of talk about sort of the branch that you guys have set up and, you know, what it looks like in terms of investors coming to you from the beginning and kind of that full cycle.
Sure. So to your point, it did kind of start off with our CIO, Ryan, who did all the investor relations. Then we brought in Ted, our investor relations manager, and then recently Ed, our investor relations VP. So yeah, honestly, like most firms, we started off with a lot of friends and family investors. We started going to a lot of conferences, industry events, things like that. And that's kind of where we gained the word of mouth. So we don't do any cold reach outs or anything like that. We have a lot of intakes come to us, like I said, through those conferences. They hear us on a podcast, referrals from current investors. You know, the way we kind of split it up internally is one person handles all the active investors, and then two of us are kind of going out, finding the new ones, converting the new ones, things like that. So that's kind of our process. We've really built it up in the last 8 months. We have a ton of processes and procedures in place, lots of new automation and marketing drip campaigns going in to really take us to the next level. So
awesome. So what do some of those campaigns look like, right? So you're kind of the face there at the show. Someone comes up and talks to you. What does that sort of, you know, kind of process look like from start to finish?
Sure. So kind of from the start, you know, people will do a little bit of research on us. So they'll go to our website, they'll see an offering memorandum, something like that. Someone will talk about us to them. We love to get them on the phone to get to know them more, get to know their investment goals. Some people like cash flow more than upside, or vice versa. So really starting to talk to them, you know, understand their goals for the year, for the next 5 years. And what they do as a W-2, that's always really interesting to kind of hear as well. So once we kind of talk to them, we get them set up on our investor portal, send them the documents necessary. We'll put them either on a little bit of an educational drip campaign, or just keep them, you know, on our monthly newsletter cycle. But that's pretty much the process. We do give them our cell phones, which is really great. And it gives it a personal touch, because if they have a quick question and they feel like they can't reach anybody, that's not a good experience. So they call or text us, we'll answer their question, no problem. We love to be available. So
absolutely. So it sounds like a very white glove service that you guys offer, which is awesome. I mean, obviously you guys have been able to create such a big name in the industry, so that's definitely part of it. So as that process is going, let's say you don't have a fund open, sounds like you'll keep them in some kind of like marketing campaign. And then based on what they're looking for, do you offer every fund to everyone, or do you kind of, you know, target certain investors based on, you know, initial calls and things like that?
Sure. So since we are just launching our first fund, before we did those, you know, single deal offerings, so we would kind of know off the top of our head, okay, you know, this person loves the Texas market, so we would reach out to that person specifically for an asset that we had in Texas. So a little bit, you know, right now we only do 506C offerings for accredited investors. So we just focus on the value add and high growth markets at this time. So we kind of just blasted out to our entire network, especially with the fund coming up. You know, we have our wait list and people who said they're interested. but yeah, we'll kind of just blast it out. And since we're going to be adding 40 to 60 properties as the target number of facilities in that fund, there should be an asset for everyone's liking in there. So
awesome. Cool. So this will be your first ever, fund that you guys are launching. So kind of talk about where that idea came from and, what the process has been like getting that ready.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're still in kind of the starting phases of getting it ready, finalizing the legal documents and things like that. But really the idea came from Q4 last year. We closed on 20 some properties, all value add, all in high growth, great markets. And it came to the point where we had 3 or 4 open offerings at a time. And our investors would be like, well, these are all good deals. Which one do we choose? It's hard to choose one over the other. So, we're like, okay, well, why not package them up? Everyone shares the upside and everything, mitigates the risk a little bit if you have one dweller for the time being. And so that's where that came from. The industry is seemingly starting to move to that model anyways. It's a lot easier to scale like that. So yeah, we're really excited. April 1st will be our launch date. So
awesome. And then it sounds like you said 40 to 60 assets within that fund. Is that just as you go, you're going to target them and add them to the fund, or do you have a lot of that already kind of worked out?
Yep. So we will be adding them to the fund as we go. So our acquisitions team is always looking at new deals, new properties to place under contract. So it'll kind of like a waitlist system for the whole year. It's probably $150 million equity fund, about $400 million in total property costs. So yeah, we'll kind of have a wait list going. And then if we need 5 million for this purchase, the next $5 million in line, we'll get that. And then their prep will start accruing, and then we'll just keep going down the list. So I think that's how we're going to handle it.
Awesome. And then you had kind of alluded before, you obviously had some training, understanding underwriting and all of that. So do you look at each individual deal so that you can speak to each one with the investors, or what does that look like?
Yes. So I do my best to understand all the ins and outs of each deal because you never really know what an investor is going to ask, how sophisticated they are. Some people really just care about the returns. Some really love to dive into the P&Ls and cap rates and all of those things. So I do my best to educate myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally makes sense. And obviously, like you said, you never know what an investor is going to ask or what information they want. No matter how nuanced, a lot of investors do really, really heavy due diligence, and you need to know the answers as an experienced operator. It's important to make sure you always have those answers. And, obviously the farther up you go, the more it's important to have those. So kind of talk about now what kind of markets you guys are looking at. You said really the growth markets and things like that. So what areas do you guys really like to focus on?
Sure. So we have 150 MSAs across the country that we will look in. Right now, we're really loving the Southeast, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Texas. We are huge in Texas. Denver, we have a couple of facilities, outside of the greater Denver metro area, Pacific Northwest, Portland, Seattle. We're kind of breaking into Wisconsin. We have a couple assets there now. It's really high growth around Madison. And then Carolinas, we would love to break into there. Utah, Arizona, very hot competitive markets, but great properties to be bought. So
awesome. And then are you part of that as well, or do you just wait until those assets are identified?
Sure. So yeah, I am not part of the acquisitions process or anything like that. So I kind of just wait to hear once it's under contract, but I do occasionally, actually pretty frequently, go visit the assets so I can really see them in person, understand the markets even more. I used to, back in the day, go on the due diligence trips, the feasibility trips, things like that before we got bigger. But yeah, I just stick on the capital side once the decision has been made. So
cool. So all right, so you've got the fund, you identify the property. Now, are you personally reaching out to the investors? Are they just on a campaign? What does that capital raise process kind of look for you guys internally?
Sure. So a lot of the people come to us first. We'll kind of warm them up, get them ready. If we don't have an offering open at the time, we'll kind of keep them on the back burner until we do. And then we will go back, reach out personally. We have a big kind of offering launch email that goes out first, and then we'll reach out to our, specific points of contact that we know are ready to invest, waiting for our next deal. So a little bit of both.
Awesome. And then are you running the webinars as part of the investor relations team?
Sure. Our CIO, Ryan, usually runs the webinars because he knows the most about everything.
He does indeed. Yes. I was talking to him at Best Ever, and there were certain things I had to kind of go back and be like, can you explain that? I'm new to the self-storage game. So it's very intriguing space. Now, to be clear, all of your assets are self-storage at Spartan, correct?
Yes. Everything going forward that we'll be buying is storage. We do have a couple of RV parks in our portfolio from acquisitions a couple of years ago, but yes, we are mainly storage.
Okay, awesome. Pretty much the name in storage as far as a household name is concerned. So that's really awesome. So you've got the entire process there for the investors. And then what does it look like as you guys continue along, deal cycle, things like that, kind of what your job entails in terms of communicating with investors and different things like that?
Absolutely. So, once the offerings have closed, we do keep tabs on our investors kind of with monthly and quarterly emails, a quarterly webinar, and then any other time that they have questions or want to chat about what's coming down the pipeline, things like that, they'll reach out to us, or we'll kind of randomly reach out to them. Or anytime that there's an issue with a distribution or a question about when's the distribution coming, we'll do it ad hoc. But every first of the month, we have our monthly newsletter that goes out, which is an entire overview of our portfolio, the performance, the occupancy, stuff like that. And then quarterly, we send out our financial statements for the pro forma versus actual, so they can see, literally how the investments are doing. And we share that for our entire portfolio as well, so they can see into other sides of the business that they haven't invested in. So
sweet. Awesome. So really giving them, again, that white glove service, making sure full transparency, which is very important to keep repeat investors. So I know you're a huge proponent of the know, like, and trust model, right? We all really are when you're dealing with investors. It's very important. So for you, what does that look like? What makes a great investor relationship, and what parts of you are the most important?
Sure. I think that trust is high up there. Obviously, they need to know and like you first, but having that open, transparent relationship with them if something's not going right, being the first one to say, hey, this isn't going how we planned. Here's what we're going to do to fix it. Keeping them informed that, something might not be on track, or, what have you, just so they don't find out from another source first, or that they're like, well, hold on, I haven't heard from Spartan in a couple months. Like, what is happening? Where's my distribution? So making sure that they can trust you, that you're honest and transparent with them. That's great. Kind of back to what we were talking about earlier too, is getting face-to-face with them as many as we can. I mean, you really get to know someone so much better when you're in front of them, having drinks, having dinner, whatever it might be, just because phone calls can be a little bit tough. So I think that's really important. And then I think the third thing that honestly sets us apart and really helps those relationships is that we are always available. If someone emails us, we'll do our best to get back with them in 6-12 hours, if it's over a weekend, 24 hours, whatever it may be. But they have our personal cells. I think that, we've been told that really does make a difference. So. Absolutely.
That's awesome. And I think that's, a huge point as well. The trust thing, they know that you'll respond, get back to you, and kind of, again, that's where you're going to get those repeat investors, people coming back, all of that transparency, which is so huge. And I really think, it's not talked about enough. It's said, but it's not really talked about enough in terms of really building that, so that, as you continue to grow and build this fund, because, listen, the longer you're around this game, $150 million doesn't sound like that much money, but in the end it is. And to get that much, especially, from retail investors, even accredited, it takes a while to build that trust and all of that. So it's really important to continue that. So you guys sounds like probably to the referral part now, where you're getting a lot of referrals. So are you kind of handling all of that as well?
Absolutely. Yep. So, kind of going back to those repeat investors, we have about a 95% rate for repeat investors. So once they're in a couple of deals and they understand that the distributions will come as soon as possible and on time, when the cash flow is there, that kind of helps with the trust as well. Like, okay, we're getting money back. This is good. So yeah, absolutely. The referrals that come in, we'll kind of put them through the same process of getting on the phone with them, getting to know them. Honestly, even if a little bit more of a white glove treatment, if possible for them, because we know that one of our investors has trusted us with their friend or their family member's money as well. And we really want to make sure, we love that. We put a lot of pride in our work. So we make sure that they're taken care of. So.
Awesome. Now, are you guys operating all of these on your own? Are you doing some co-GP stuff as well? Or is it pretty much just all in-house now with how your team is?
Yeah, all in house. So we have a team of about 85 people. So every property manager is a Spartan employee. We have our own construction company in house as well. So we control every single aspect of the whole
Wow.
business plan. Yep.
True full cycle. That's
Yes.
awesome. Well, that's really great to see. I know it's obviously taken a long time. You've been there for most of it. If I'm not correct, that's pretty much from the beginning that you've been there, right?
Yeah, I was the second employee outside of the partners. So I've seen it grow from, I think, 10 of us to 85 of us. So.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, congrats on that. So we're kind of getting towards the end here. So we'll jump into our final 5 questions. These are the questions we ask everyone at the end. Best advice you've gotten from a mentor?
Gosh, best advice. Couple different pieces of advice. I think one would be something that Ryan talks about all the time is, everything works, nothing works. So especially when it comes to IR and marketing and things like that, you might have success from one action one time and you'll never be able to repeat it, something like that. So just keeping flexibility and your options always open and being able to go with the flow and change as needed is a really great piece of advice that he always gives out. And on the back end, another piece of advice that's, I guess, more like personal finance is, try to replace as much of your income as you can with passive investments as early as you can, so that you have the flexibility down the road to be able to travel, retire early, whatever it may be, pay for your children's care. I don't know. So not a lot of people at my age start to think like that. I'm 26 and I can tell you none of my friends are saving up money to investing it passively. So,
Are you a passive investor?
I am working on it. It's my goal this year to get into my first deal. I've done, stock and other crypto things that are not quite passive, but I want to buy either investment property or invest in storage passively, something like that this year. That's my goal. So
awesome. Love that. Cool. So let's we didn't really talk about it, but you kind of alluded to, sounds like you're headed towards financial freedom as kind of the driver for doing what you do. So what is it about your career that makes you feel like you're fulfilling that?
Sure. So, well, right now what's really fulfilling is being able to help others become financially free. So the passive income that we give our investors, the long-term wealth that we're helping them achieve is really exciting. And it's really cool to hear everyone's different story on whether they're retiring and looking to really just subsidize that cash flow that they're looking for, or whether they want to retire in 10 years and they're getting ready now. It's just cool to be able to be the vehicle to help make that happen. So
I love that. That's awesome. Okay. What's your favorite non-real estate or investment related book?
Oh, goodness. I recently read Girl Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis. I think that's her name. I thought that was a great book, especially about being, well, I guess it's a little bit work related, but women in business, just kind of setting yourself apart, creating goals, whether it be in your personal life or your work life, and executing on that. So
is there any part that feels like being a woman, especially in this industry, obviously male dominated, but I will say there are a lot of very successful, far more successful than me, females in the industry, which is incredible to see. But does that ever show itself in any way, or does it seem to be pretty, open, male or female?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's evolved and changed a lot, even from when I first started from my kind of viewpoint, but I think there might even be a little bit of an advantage. I think maybe some traits that women have are great for even for the IR role, maybe the customer service focused or the, whatever it might be. But I definitely don't think there are any disadvantages, and it's becoming more of the norm. So
Awesome. I love that. That was not part of the final five, but I wanted to know. I was very curious.
Yeah.
So are you familiar with the Marvel superheroes?
Not really.
Not really? Okay. What about Star Wars?
Can't say. I am not a big TV or movie person at all.
That's fair. Okay. So of the Marvel superheroes that you know, which one would you say you relate to most?
Well, since I'm going to take a guess and say Superwoman is one of those. So we'll go with Superwoman.
I love it. Easy enough. Cool. And then the last one, super easy. What's the best way for people to reach out and get in contact with you and learn more about you and Spartan?
Sure. So my personal email is lauren@spartan-investors.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn under just Lauren Brychell. And our website is spartan-investors.com. So those are the three ways.
Sweet. Well, we will link all of that in the show notes. Lauren, thank you so much for coming on. I had a great time talking with you today.
Likewise, Jonathan. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching today's episode. I hope you really enjoyed it. Listen, I know it's cliche and you hear it all the time, but please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you know when the next video is coming out. Even though this is technically a daily podcast, you know it's coming out the next day. We have a ton of content coming your way. So please like and subscribe. It helps a ton. Leave comments. Would love to know what you guys think. And we will see you on the next one. Thanks so much.